28 years later is almost here. And since the third film is coming almost 2 decades after the release of the first and second films, here is everything that you need to remember about 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. The 28 Days Later series is one of the most beloved zombie franchises of all time, with it redefining the zombie genre. After years of waiting for a third film to be announced, plans were revealed for an entire 28 Years Later trilogy, meaning that there is a lot to recap about the Rage virus. 28 Years Later is set long after the events of the first two films, with society having collapsed even further. Based on the trailers, there is no semblance of government anymore, with non-infected humans living in hiding. While there was a chance of humanity taking the world back in the previous two films, 28 Years Later seems to take place in a truly post-apocalyptic society. Because of that, here is a full breakdown of how the world of 28 Years Later got to this point, and everything that there is to know about the zombie outbreak and the film's characters. Like all good zombie stories, the outbreak had a beginning. According to the comic 28 Days Later, the aftermath, the virus was the result of a scientific quest that two Cambridge scientists embarked on. They were tasked with finding a way to inhibit excessive anger and aggression in humans, with them deciding to experiment on chimpanzees. They succeeded in creating this inhibitor, with them next deciding how to distribute it. The scientists determined that they needed a wild method of delivery, the Ebola virus. They assumed that, since Ebola was widespread, it would be an effective way to distribute their inhibitor. Unfortunately, the inhibitor mutated when it came into contact with the Ebola virus. Instead of suppressing anger, it magnified it, creating the highly contagious Rage virus. While this is the commonly cited origin of the Rage virus, its comic book origins make its canon status questionable. In the comic, one of the scientists decides that something has to be done. So, he went to an environmental group called the Animal Freedom Front and acted as a whistleblower for what they invented. 28 Days Later explains what happens from this point on. The AFF members went to the lab and decided to free the chimpanzees who had become infected with the mutated inhibitor. When they did, one of the activists was attacked, becoming patient zero of the Rage virus. Then, it spread to the other activists and scientists before escaping the lab. 28 Days Later picks up with Cillian Murphy's Jim waking up from a coma, 28 days after the Rage virus outbreak started. He awakens at St. Thomas's Hospital in London, discovering that the Rage virus zombies have overrun the city. There is virtually no sign of humanity, and all semblance of government and society is missing. Eventually, Jim finds a group of human survivors. They help him navigate the zombified society, with him dodging zombies and humans who have taken advantage of the situation. At this time, the Rage virus is mostly contained in Great Britain. Jim and his friends see jets flying overhead, implying that the zombies haven't taken over everywhere. However, they visit areas like Deptford and Manchester, where they discover the extent of the zombie carnage. Although the exact year that the film takes place in isn't revealed, it is likely that 28 Days Later takes place sometime around its 2002 release date. Near the end of 28 Days Later, Jim and his friends take refuge with a group of soldiers. However, they eventually discover that the group is attempting to make sex slaves out of the women. So, they decide to escape. In the mad dash to get out, Jim is shot. However, he survives. The film jumps forward another 28 days, with the group having made it to Cumbria. There, Jim is recovering when the group sees some jets flying overhead. They attempt to get the jets' attention with a large cloth banner, although their fate is never revealed. 28 Weeks Later reveals that the Rage virus zombies in Great Britain mostly starved out due to them not eating anything. So, NATO stepped in, with them deciding to help take back Great Britain. They start in London, bringing in a group of refugees and survivors and situating them on the secluded Isle of Dogs. The citizens aren't supposed to leave the island, as the military is making expeditions into the rest of London to clear out any zombie stragglers. Unfortunately, this doesn't last long, with a second Rage virus outbreak causing Great Britain to fall under zombie rule once again. The second outbreak seen in 28 weeks later was caused by an important factor, an asymptomatic carrier of the rage virus. It is discovered that a woman named Alice is carrying the rage virus without being infected by it, with the U.S. government hoping to make a cure out of her. Unfortunately, Don kisses her, causing him to become infected. Don then kills Alice and begins to infect other citizens and soldiers, kicking off the rage virus outbreak once again. Although Alice is dead, she has two children who may still be alive, Tammy and Andy. The government believes that both of them could have inherited the quality that makes them immune, meaning that there is still hope for a cure in the future. As of right now, the fate of Tammy and Andy in 28 years later isn't known. With the help of a helicopter pilot named Flynn, they fly away from London. The group is headed to France, although they don't seem to have made it. The film ends by jumping another 28 weeks into the future, revealing the wreckage of Flynn's helicopter. This implies that they somehow crashed on the way to France, with Tammy and Andy presumably either dying in the crash or during the ensuing chaos. 28 weeks later ends on a tragic note, with the rage virus escaping Great Britain and making it to mainland Europe. A group of zombies burst out of a French metro station near the Eiffel Tower, revealing that people in Paris are starting to become infected. A radio call reveals that French authorities are requesting backup, showing the scale of the attack. France undoubtedly isn't the only location that has been hit by the rage virus, something that 28 years later could show. Somehow, infected zombies are still around during the events of 28 years later. It hasn't been revealed how they survived, or if they have evolved at all. However, they are clearly still overrunning society, with their full impact not being revealed until 28 years later is released.